Hi there, beautiful art friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I'm Emily, and I'm so excited that you're here today. I am actually going to show you how I prepare a canvas for a mixed media project. It's top secret. It's for my mom, so I'm going to show you kind of some of the steps, but it's going to be based on a really super fun Karen Campbell video. So I'm going to kind of do it off screen, but kind of show you my journey along the way. But it's like a really large, it's 10 by 30, and it's going to be super fun, so I can't wait to kind of show you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to show you the supplies really quick. I'm going to be using modeling paste and matte medium, some white gesso, maybe even some black gesso, and then I also already tore up some paper. I have all kinds of like scrapbook paper in shades and colors that I wanted to bring into the painting. I'm using gloves because the matte medium is a little bit sloppy. And then I also went ahead and pulled out some stencils that I might also use in the background. My mom loves flowers, so I want to bring in some of those maybe. And then I have one really big piece of paper that I actually left intact, and I'm going to kind of put that off onto one of the corners of the canvas. So I'm going to kind of change my setup so you can see what I'm working on my desk. You'll be able to see little bits of it at a time simply because it's so big my camera's not going to pick all of that up. So anyways, I will get reset and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is so big. I'll have to do it in sections obviously. And I already have matte medium poured out on a plate. And it's basically a glue, and it dries clear, so your paper shows through, and it gives it a kind of a nice little texture. So what I'm gonna do first is start gluing down my paper. And the way I tore it up is I kind of did some that would be for corner pieces, so I leave kind of the edge on it. And then I did some that would have a straight edge just to be kind of on the side. And then I did just random torn pieces. You don't want super big, but you want big enough because this is such a large canvas, so that it doesn't take 900 years to slap that down on there. The thing to remember is you want to make sure you have enough of the matte medium under and over your paper so that it really sticks to the canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start, and I'm actually going to start, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I'll think about that. I may not use that after all. We shall see. So I'm going to start by putting in some corners. I'll start up here at the top. So I'm getting a whole bunch on my little sponge here. I paint onto the back of the paper. Oops. And then also I will put the glue directly onto the canvas. So I slop it everywhere. And then I'll put it down here. And then, let me scoop some of that off the desk. You will paint over the top of that as well, so that it seals it. You can kind of shift it a little bit if you need to. And then I kind of run my finger over it to make sure that it's really glued down all around the edges. And then I will go ahead and put a little bit more down. Oh my goodness, I just slopped it everywhere. I love mixed media, and I love making collages for the background of my paintings. It's so fun, and it's a great way to bring interest, and you know how I like the pizzazz. So that's another way to zhuzh it up. Now, like I said, this will leave a texture, so you'll see your brush marks, which is fine because again it's in the background, but I just want you to be aware of that. And you overlap them because the goal is to not really see any of the white canvas when you're done. I have 3 to 4 different kinds of paper, so I'm just kind of trying to alternate as much as possible. If you haven't checked out Karen Campbell yet, you should check her out. She is a great teacher and she is hilarious. She's very down to earth and makes art fun, which is what I try to do as well. I've learned a lot from her. But don't forget about me. Gotta come back and see me too. I brought in a little bit of tissue paper. You have to be careful with it. It's a little fragile, but it's just a different kind of texture to bring in. It's cool because it leaves little bumps and grooves. You just, yeah, like I said, you have to be kind of careful because it can tear. You don't want to go over it too many times. Just let that be. Oh, I almost started singing Let It Be by Paul McCartney. Maybe? I don't know if it was him, just him, or if it was all of them. It's a little before my time. Some of that color came off from the fibers, but that's okay because again, it's not going to show up. If I think it's too big, I can make it smaller. So you just work your way around the canvas until it's completely filled. Like I said, this is going to take a minute because it's so big. Something else to consider when you're putting down your paper is your subject matter, where you're going to put your subject matter within the canvas. What I'm going to be doing is going to take basically the whole thing kind of in the center. But if you don't want to have a texture behind what you're going to be drawing, then you can just leave a gap in that area and not put the paper down. I want the texture, so I am going to go ahead and put it everywhere on the canvas. Sometimes whenever I draw faces, which this will have a face, but if I don't want the face to have bumps or texture or anything like that, then I will avoid putting paper in that area. I went ahead and just dumped some of that matte medium on the paper because it's taken forever. You want to work fairly quickly, and then you have to make sure that it's 100% dry before you start to draw on it, or it'll rip, or it won't work. So you can let it air dry. You can use a hair dryer. I'm gonna go have some lunch while it dries, come back to it. You really want to make sure that you smooth it down really good, really well. You don't have any air pockets or anything, because those can dry weird and then kind of rip open as well. So you just want to be mindful. All right, I just have this little section left here. It goes by pretty quick. Like I said, you don't want to have the tiniest pieces of paper ripped up, but having them at least a little bit larger when it's this big will help get some quicker coverage. I didn't always wear gloves when I did this, and that is a bad idea because it gets everywhere. It's so hard to wash off because your hand just gets glued, and it's not really great to put down the sink. Just like acrylic paint isn't great to put down the sink because it, when it dries, it's like plastic. You don't want that getting stuck in your pipes. I'll be using some inks and some acrylics with this project. I'm hoping it turns out the way I'm envisioning it in my head and the way I sketched out what I want to do. It's going to be hilarious. I love it when I get really inspired and want to really dig in and dive into a project. There are definitely times where I feel like I'm just creating to create, because I feel like I have to do something, but I'm not as inspired. You can always tell with my finished work if it's something that I was really into. You can feel the love, see the love, the care that I put into it. Doesn't mean that I don't like things that I've created that maybe I wasn't quite as inspired to do, but I can just really sense it and whenever I'm really excited about it. So it just can be a little bit more challenging. There's also different thicknesses of scrapbooking paper. This is actually a little bit thicker than maybe I would normally use, but this is what I have on hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it, and I really wanted to use the pinks and reds and purples and the flowers because it's gonna be for my mom. And with the thicker paper, I really try and make sure it's not hanging off the edge like this one is a little bit. So, because you really got to make sure then that it's super glued down. And with it being a little thicker, it can be a little tougher to accomplish that. So you just got to be careful. And then I'll actually paint the sides so they won't remain white when I'm finished with the whole project. And this sponge brush will be thrown away as well when I'm done, depending on what I use them for. Sometimes I'll rinse them and save them, but not with the matte medium. I thought this paper was really pretty as well with that gold shining through. This is a really good brand of matte medium. It's the Golden. Golden has a lot of really good products. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're quality, so that's one of the reasons why I buy them. Liquitex has a really great matte medium as well, which is what I have after this one is empty, which I'm in the process of emptying that out right now. I'd love to know in the comments if you work with matte medium, or do you like to make collages, or if you just love mixed media in general. I love watercolors, but it's really fun to dig in with like something a lot more challenging sometimes. I prefer a more like irregular tear, but some of them, especially with the thick paper, seems like they tear kind of where they're straighter on the edges. I think that's pretty good. So I'm gonna let this dry and then I will be back shortly. All right, so this is all dry. One thing I did do off camera is go ahead and put this big flower right here where I'm gonna place the painting, the picture. This is gonna be kind of a focal point that I kind of wanted, so I went ahead and did that. But you can kind of see it all now. And now I'm going to bring a little bit of paint in to cover a little bit, just kind of a transparent cover of some of the paint colors that are kind of within the paper. So I'm gonna be bringing in a little bit of green, just a tiny bit of green, and a little bit of eggplant, and then just a hint of this really light pink. And I'm going to do that by mushing it around with a like old Sam's card. So you don't want to overthink it. As I say all the time, the best part is just kind of going hog wild sometimes. Now, one thing to remember, if you're using multiple colors, if you swipe them together, then they're gonna, you know, mush and mix together. So if you don't want to do that, then you'll want to let them dry in between each color. I'm gonna start with just a little bit of green because I'm only using a tiny bit just to bring out a little bit of that green that I have in the paper. And my mom likes green, so I'm just gonna bring it in a little bit. It'll get kind of knocked back from some of the other colors. It just kind of ties everything together if you can have a little bit, all the colors that you have in your paper. You can hear that texture, and then you can just wipe some off on a paper towel if you have a little more than you want. And then you can even wipe some off with the paper towel as well if you want. If you think it got too heavy, a little darker than I want, so I'm just going to remove a little bit of it so that you can still see that paper kind of coming through underneath. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of the eggplant. Again, I'm going to take this cloth to just lighten that up a little bit. I can even kind of wipe some along the side here just to get that kind of started. And I'm avoiding this just because I know that I want you to be able to see this. Actually, it's going to be a print on a shirt, so I want you to be able to see that part. So I'm going to dry this with the hair dryer real quick, and then I'm going to transfer my drawing onto this. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to lay down, got carbon paper, so I'll lay that down, and then I'll lay my image over that. And I like to use one of these. I use kind of the smallest end to then trace over my image so that it then transfers onto my paper or my canvas, and then I'll go over it with a Stabilo All pencil after that. So I'm going to dry this and then get that all transferred, and then I will come back with a couple more things that I'm gonna do. But like I said, I'm not gonna be filming this whole thing because this is not my original idea. I don't wanna steal any thunder from Karen Campbell, another artist. I just kind of want to show you some of the steps that I'm taking that's really fun while you're creating a mixed media project. So I will be back. So I wanted to jump on to show you this technique that I am using right now. This is a Stabilo All Pencil. I can put it in frame here. And it's water soluble. So I've outlined my drawing with this. And then I have kind of a stiff, like just an old brush with white gesso. I'm using white gesso from Liquitex. I've just put it in my yogurt container. And I'm gonna dip just a little tiny bit, if I can find my camera, on the tip there. And then I'm going to go right along that outer edge where that Stabilo All is, and it's activating it. And then I kind of wipe off a little bit of it, and then I kind of scrumble or scruff it around so that it gets lighter the farther away I move from the image. And it kind of gives this like glowing effect almost. But I wipe it off a little bit first so that when I go to drag it out, it's not all dirty. Using a Stabilo All takes a little while to get used to because it is so reactive to wet media, whether that's gesso or acrylic paints or anything. So you don't want to get too heavy-handed when you first start working with it, but it's a really cool tool to use when you're using mixed media to be able to draw on it, so that you can actually see your lines, so you don't have to use a marker. Because usually if you use a pencil, you're not going to see it. It's not going to show up on the mixed media paper or on top of the matte medium. So I'm just kind of activating it right now, just along, like I said, along the outer edge. So when I go to paint on the inside, it won't be as reactive. And like I said, it kind of gives it this little glow, which is kind of neat. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. And now that I'm starting to put some paint down, or well, it's just so you can really see the texture that I got from the matte medium and from the paper. So it's really, really cool. So I will pop back on whenever I do something else I want to show you. All right, it's time to get super crazy, trying something completely different and new. So I've got some modeling paste here. I'm gonna squish it around for a second. And then I'm going to put some of it in this bowl, maybe. Oh, there it goes. It's very stiff. Okay. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of white gesso in here too. And then I'm gonna mush this all around, stir it up. Some art soup. Don't eat it. And then I'm going to try, I have to use that as a support here. There we go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make some hair. Dang it. There we go. So I'm gonna just kind of start using a palette knife. I'm just kind of getting some on here, getting some hair texture. I've used modeling paste before in my mixed media, but never for hair. I wonder if this will dry this year. just a little bit of pink. I think it's really loose, looser than I'm normally used to working with it because I added that white gesso, so it's just not as stiff as I was expecting. I might have to kind of let it dry first and then go back in to add a little bit of texture. Well, not texture, but I want the curls to sort of show up a little bit better. Alrighty. I think that'll be all right. Keep fussing with it and then I'm gonna get mad. That's the way it always works. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do one more thing, and then it's like, crap. I wish I hadn't done that. Looks like shaving cream. So I'll let that dry for a week, and then I'll come back and work on it some more. Now you can kind of tell what it's gonna be, but it's cracking me up. So I will check back in with you in a little bit. Here she is. Can't even hardly show her all to you. Too funny. So for the coloring of the jacket, I used 2 kinds of ink. They're permanent, so they won't reactivate. They're like acrylic type inks. I don't know if Bombay is acrylic, but it doesn't move once you put it down. And then I've been using, they're called Gelatos, and they're really fun. It's a quick and easy way to get, let me zoom in for you, some pigment down. Like I wanted the cheeks to be kind of rosy. I have this guava. And you can just kind of roll it on. Not even roll it, but smush it on. And then you just use your finger to kind of to smush it around. You want to make sure your fingers are clean or it'll get dirty. And then you can use some of the other colors, which I don't really have a good color that I like for shading. I'm going to use something else for that after I do the next layer. So I'm going to keep kind of working on this. I'm going to use some for the pants. I'm going to use a blue one, I think. So it's kind of like jeans, maybe. I'm just trying to decide if I want the dark or the light. The beautiful thing is you can put it on and then rub it and you're like, oh no, I don't like that. It's too dark. You can take a wet wipe or like a damp paper towel and just wipe it right off. So I think I'm going to go with a little bit of a lighter one. I've got this cotton candy, and you can just kind of scribble it on and then you just rub it in with your finger. So it adds a little bit of color, but you can still see through it so that you can see the paper. Because that's kind of, you know, one of the reasons we do the collage is to be able to see through and see the fun paper. If you wanted to do multiple coats of the gelato, at some point you can't really layer them anymore. They'll start they'll remove each other, or they just won't layer anymore. So you can do a layer of Mod Podge and then you can layer over that again. So sky's the limit on the amount of times. But that's one of the reasons I love mixed media as well. It's very just intuitive. You can just start playing and just kind of do what your hand wants you to do. Get into that vibe, that flow state of just kind of playing around, like making art fun, because that's the whole point, isn't it? Not overthinking everything. And whenever I start a project, I don't do commissions really. I tend to like to work intuitively or work on things that inspire me. It removes the pressure of it having to be perfect because somebody might buy it or somebody ordered it or whatever. Now I sell my work, but I don't create it to sell it. But if somebody likes it and wants to buy it, I'm all for it. Hopefully that makes sense. But it just removes the stress of being like, oh no, I messed it up. It's like, well, it's just for me, just to play, just to practice, just to try, you know, a new medium or a new tool, or, you know, it's not about perfection. Art is never about perfection, at least not to me, like so. And I'm gonna leave the shirt just that paper. That's why I kind of put that down. I thought that was really pretty. So I'm gonna kind of keep working on some different steps, and then I'll kind of pop back in and let you know what I do next. Okay, I started putting Mod Podge down. I started with her pants. Now you can go over the whole thing at once, but I am darkening the edges, or that, like the actual outline, with a little bit more of the Stabilo All. It will create like a harsher black outline and create a little bit more of a shadow, but it's going to activate. So it's going to, like you can see, it really activates it depending on how much you put down. So I go kind of slow and steady. Sometimes I don't, and then it's like, oh boy, gets a little crazy, a little out of hand. So this time I decided to kind of take my time a little bit. So I just thought I'd show you a little bit of that real quick. So I have Mod Podge. I have some here. And then I always have some paper towels handy to kind of sponge off, because it'll pick up a little bit of the Gelatos, and then it will obviously pick up that Stabilo. So if I want to keep an area that doesn't have that color in it, then I'll kind of wipe off my brush. So I don't take a ton, I just kind of dipped it in. And then I start by just running the little sponge brush right up against that, and then I'll kind of dab it off a little bit, and then I'll kind of go over it again. Like I said, I want to activate that line first right there before I go over everything. That way, when I go back over it, it won't activate it again. Once it's been activated, it won't move. I like a little bit of smearing, but I just don't want it to be so insane that it's getting that black in everything and just smears all the way across it. Up here, it's going to be a little bit weird just because of that crazy hair. I'm just going to kind of fan it out. It will kind of turn into a shadow. Dabbing it off, and then I'll go ahead and fill the rest of that in. And then if you see a spot, it's like, oh gosh, that got crazy, then you can just kind of pick it up a little bit. You have to move kind of fast with the Mod Podge, but you can kind of pick it up and wipe it off. And whatever direction you paint, that will show the texture once it dries. So if you don't want it to look short, then don't go this way, kind of try to go. I'm always talking about contour lines and shading and all that stuff. So you want to just kind of continue to follow whatever those lines are. Wipe off too much, then you'll kind of lose the effect. So I'm not trying to lose it. I'm just kind of trying to make it so it's not smearing everywhere. It takes some getting used to, but it's worth it. You know, working especially with mixed media, it's all about layers. That's how you create depth and interest. Yeah, so just like that. And then I'm just going to keep working on, and then I will pop back in for the next little step that I use. Pitt Pens. I'm going to be bringing some Pitt Pens in, so I'll show you that next. Okay, moving right along. Now I'm going to go in with my Pitt Pens. The Mod Podge is completely dry, and now it gives it like a really slick surface, which is pretty cool for the use of the Pitt Pens. They're made by Faber-Castell. They're like an India ink marker, and they're really neat for adding shadows. You can layer these a little bit. Again, if you try to put too many coats down, they'll kind of remove each other. So it's best to kind of put a few down, and then if you want to keep adding, then you would just put another layer of Mod Podge, and then you can build up more shadows and things with these. So I'm going to zoom in. We'll kind of start on her face here. So you can hear it squeaking, and then you can rub that in. And again, if you don't like it, you can wipe it off with a wet wipe or paper towel. So you don't have to be super freaking out if you put something down and you don't like it. So I just kind of go in and put shadows where I think they would be. The ear would basically be all the way in shadow because of her glasses and her hair. I'll do the same over here. I can add some more. Just starting to build up some depth. There'd be a little shadow under the glasses. Obviously, I haven't really drawn her nose in yet. We'll get to that. Get shadow along the sides of her nose from her glasses. You can just work kind of slow so you have time to blend that in. I also have to put in her eyebrows. So this is based off of my mom. She had these humongous red glasses when I was growing up. Hilarious. And this is based off of Karen Campbell's, this is hers that she made, which is hilarious. But anytime I kind of take a class, I make a lot of changes. So I'm just making it my own, but I get really inspired by other people's work, obviously. So I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so fun to do that, but like morph it into my mom. I was gonna wait and give it to her for Mother's Day, but I can't because I love her so much. This is amazing. I love it. It's so cute. You'll have to let me know if you think it's cute and be nice about it. Oh, you gotta love the internet. People get nasty. There's no room for nasty. Okay, I apologize. I have no idea where I was at. I got a phone call from my son and had to stop recording. I record on my phone right now, so I was like, oh no. So anywho, let me continue putting in some of these shadows. Just gonna show you a little bit here. Like I said, I'm not trying to steal anybody's thunder, but it's really fun to, you know, see how I work with mixed media. And these are super fun to work with. So you would just you can just keep layering them a little bit, kind of tap it around, mush it around, and then it just continues to build up the shadows. And then you can also draw with them so that you can put in different lines and things like that. There's all different colors. You can use black to do any outlining that you want to. I may use this one for some of it, but my favorite way to outline is actually with Posca. I use those all the time. If you've ever been to my channel before, you'll definitely have seen those. So I'm just gonna keep working on this, and then I'll pop back in and let you see probably the final painting. We'll see if there's something else I want to pop in and show you. So, yep, I will see you in a bit. Okay, you guys, I am cracking up. I already showed it to my mom, and she freaking loves it. All that texture. To try to get close, see if you can. The lighting's sort of weird because trying to get that close up. Oh, it's kind of standing at a weird angle, but the hair texture, her little eyes, she just loves it so much. And then let me pan out and you can see my crazy studio now with all this stuff literally everywhere. That's what happens when I do mixed media. But anyways, I hope you guys learned something and you had a little fun with me along the way. And I will see you soon.